Good morning, this is Jim Williams with the Hurricane City Tropical Update for September 8th around 6:30 a.m. Hurricane Irma remains a very powerful major hurricane near the Great Anagua Island in the Bahamas, pulling away from there. It passed just north of there early this morning and late last night, and is now heading generally just north of due west, and it will be heading in the general direction of the north coast of Cuba over the next 24 hours, and then the turn is expected to take place towards Florida. Well, we have three hurricanes in the Atlantic right now. Of course, we have Irma heading towards Florida. We have Hurricane Jose, which is going to come very close to the northern Leeward Islands. Latest track indicates about 70 miles to the northeast of the northern Leeward Islands, so this is not going to be a direct impact, thankfully, because they're recovering from Hurricane Irma's devastation in those northeastern leewards. And of course, we have Hurricane Katia over here in the Bay of Campeche. It's going to come ashore just south of Tuxpan, Mexico, and just north of Veracruz. And here's our water vapor loop of all three hurricanes. You have Irma in the middle there. Look at Irma. It's almost twice the size of Jose and Katia. And, that's typical when they get in the western Atlantic basin. They tend to expand a little bit, especially when there's a trough to the north. The winds fan out further to the north and expand, so this is not a surprise. Here comes our trough off to the reinforcement. There's a low-pressure area that's going to come down, and it's going to create more of a weakness of the high-pressure ridge. The ridge is out here. It's going to erode this ridge. It's already starting here. You can see the edge of it right here. And that's going to allow this to slow down a little bit when it gets southeast of Andros Island and then eventually make the turn. The only question remains in all this is how strong is Irma going to be when it hits Florida, and when is the turn going to take place? Because if this hits Cuba or gets very close to Cuba, it could erode the system. It's weakened a little bit down to a Category 4 as of this morning, but it looks like on the close-up enhanced, I'll show you that in just a minute. It looks like it's making a bit of a comeback here, so it could re-intensify. There's very warm waters in the western Bahamas, as we've stated the last couple of update videos. So it remains to be seen how close this gets to Cuba, but all indications are it's going to hit Florida one way or the other, either the west coast, right up the gut of the state, or right over the east coast. The models are kind of split on that. Here is our close-up enhanced floater loop of Hurricane Irma this morning, and you can see it pass just north of Great Anagua Island. That's where the Morton Salt Factory is located, and they manufacture a lot of salt on that island because of the normally dry conditions that they have down there. But it passed just north of there, and it'll be interesting to see what kind of damage they got in Great Anagua. Probably pretty significant because the eye passed just north of there, and of course the Turks and Caicos also had it just passed just south of there, so probably very heavy damage in both of these locations. Looks like Acklands is next. They're going to get the southern portion of the island is going to get raked by that northern eye wall. But what's interesting about this is looks like it's making a little bit of a comeback here in the dark reds. If we stop it here in the last frame, you can see that right there. Look at the dark reds, and there's even some really dark colors there on the south side. So this may be making a bit of a comeback, re-intensifying here a little bit. And again, very warm sea surface temperatures out here. You got some of these temperatures out here about 87, 88, 89 degrees, even over towards Florida. So plenty of fuel for this system. The only question is, here is the coast of Cuba. Is it going to impact the coast of Cuba? And it looks like it's going to come very close to the northern coast of Cuba, south of Andros Island. So we're going to watch this closely. All right, so here is our animation from the HurTrack program, courtesy of PC Weather Products. And let's go back to our current position of Hurricane Irma. It is right near Great Anagua, well, just past Great Anagua Island, and the winds are 155 miles per hour. And here we go. The system is heading just north of due west and comes very close to the north coast of Cuba. That hurricane force wind field passes over the resort areas on the north coast of Cuba and then it turns to the north-northwest, heading right over Key Largo at this point, 145 mile per hour winds, according to the National Hurricane Center, just west of Miami, 33 miles to the west, and then over the western counties of Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County, and right over or just west of Lake Okeechobee, and that's a grave concern because of the levee situation and the potential flooding around Lake Okeechobee. I hope everybody got out of there. And then as it gets east of Tampa, we could have a very strong fetch of wind off the Gulf of Mexico, and there could be some storm surge flooding in the Tampa area. That could be another aspect of this storm. And then it moves up into the heavily populated areas of the Orlando area. Of course, there's Disney World up there. Back in 2004, when Charlie passed over Disney World, it caused quite a bit of damage as a Category 1. This is going to be still a major hurricane up at this position, 115 miles an hour. So that's still a very violent storm going over the resort areas. And then it heads up into North Florida. You got Ocala up in here. You've got some of these retirement areas. My father lives up in a town called Somerville up in here, and so we're going to see what kind of damage happens up here. But we're talking Category 2 winds, 105 miles an hour. And then it moves up west of Jacksonville and into southern Georgia, where it's still a Category 1 hurricane, about 80 miles west of Brunswick. And then it heads up towards Atlanta. At this point, it would be a tropical storm. So the people that have evacuated to Georgia, I've heard about a lot of people going up that way. They're still going to get this system in one form or another, these windy, rainy conditions. So what I like to do is calculate all the models at Hurricane City, which we've been doing since the beginning on Irma. And the best performing model continues to be the European ensembles and the operational model of the European model. So here it is. Here is the EE29. That's the best performer, off by 59.1 miles. Takes it over Key West and up near Tampa and into the Big Bend, Florida area. The operational model, which has been the second best, it takes it up in the northern Keys, splits the difference between Lake Okeechobee and the west coast of Florida. So those are the two best performers. Now, the National Hurricane Center, they do something similar to this. They take all the models, and they have a few special models they use that are not public that they use to really fine-tune this forecast. So just because these are the best performers doesn't mean this is where it's going to go. The experts at the National Hurricane Center figure that out based on all the data that they're gathering. And right now, the indications are this is going to pass through the northern Keys and right up the gut of the state. Now, using tropicaltidbits.com zoomed in models on the, let's run 4 of the close-up models on Hurricane Irma. Here's the Canadian, and if we go step by step, you can see that the system is expected to pass north of Cuba, right into Miami, east coast, east of Cape Canaveral, and up into South Carolina. But that Canadian model has not been performing very well, and it has an east bias on this entire storm. Well, let's go ahead and run the GFS. And here we go. Let's put it in reverse here. Here we go. It is just north of Cuba, coming into southeast Florida. Notice the pressure deepening on the GFS, but again, I don't know. Even though the pressure looks like it might deepen, and it's possible with the warm waters off the southeast coast of Florida, some of the other models are not indicating strengthening at landfall. So this will be another interesting aspect of this. But the GFS takes it right over the Dade, Broward, Palm Beach areas, over Cape Canaveral, and then into Georgia, without making it back out over the water. That's the latest GFS run. Now let's take a look at the HMON, which replaced the GFDL model. Now this model was when it was the GFDL. Of course, there's different parameters that go into this model than what happened with the GFDL. But the GFDL did nail Hurricane Charlie in 2004, when it was down near the Cayman Islands. It nailed the exact track of landfall in the Port Charlotte area. So let's run this, and this is the HMON model. Comes very close to the north coast of Cuba, and then comes right up through the central Florida Keys, splits the uprights between the Lake Okeechobee and the west coast of Florida. So this would be worse conditions for the west coast of Florida and better conditions for the east coast. And then it moves up the center of the state, and the right front quadrant would pass over areas like Ocala and north into Georgia. And let's run one more model, and that is the H-WRF. And the H-WRF model is taking the system. Let's go back here in time. All right, the H-WRF has it splitting the uprights between Andros and Cuba, and then makes the turn in the northern Keys right up the gut, right over Lake Okeechobee. And probably in this case, the worst conditions would be on the east coast of Florida. Lake Okeechobee, I'm very concerned about. And then it goes right up in the eastern portions of the state, right over Orlando, and then up into Georgia. And finally, here is our tower cam outside of our location here in Delray Beach, Florida, on the east coast in southern Palm Beach County. We have a pressure of 10-12 millibars and falling. And we have winds very light right now, about 10 miles an hour. But let's take a look at how many people are putting shutters up. And you have some shutters drawn on some of the houses around here. There's 2 of them that are shuttered up. A lot of these houses to the west of me here have accordion. We have accordions, shutters, but the impact-resistant glass. And you notice the house 2 doors down does have shutters on the windows. So what I'm concerned about is this house behind me, the blue house, all those French doors and everything. There's no coverage on any of those windows. So, and the house next to it has no shutters. One house there next to the pole on the tower does have the shutters drawn. And here we are facing east. They do not have shutters on that house. So that's basically where we stand. We're looking at most of these people are not shuttering this morning in this neighborhood. I would say maybe a third of the people have shutters, and the rest might have impact resistant. There's got to be at least half or more that don't have impact resistant glass. So I'm very worried. I'm also worried about the gable ends on these homes in Delray Beach here. So as we take a look at the visible of the entire Atlantic Basin, we have 3 hurricanes on the map. Of course, everybody in Florida knows Irma is coming. This is going to be very bad. Prepare your homes. Loose objects indoors. Fasten everything down. Anything that's flapping around is going to become airborne. You have all day today and part of the day tomorrow to get this done before the worst conditions arrive in Florida. And, of course, Cuba, they already have hurricane warnings up for the North Coast. I hope they got all the tourists out of those resort areas, or at least they're in safe places. And the western Bahamas as well, they're going to get very high winds. Residents in Mexico, looks like it'll hit the least populated areas, Hurricane Katia, between Tuxpan and Veracruz as a Category 1. So to wrap things up, we have a major hurricane heading towards Florida. Everyone needs to use this valuable time now, the last 36 hours where there's not going to be sustained tropical storm force winds, to get your preparations all wrapped to completion. We'll be live tonight, Hurricane Warning Show, hurricanecity.tv, or click the Facebook link on the front page of Hurricane City. You can also click that little picture of the television set in the upper right-hand corner of hurricanecity.com. That opens the live feed on the frame at Hurricane City. Right now we're streaming local television from South Florida, and we'll be live again tonight, like I said, for about an hour and a half. And then as the hurricane is hitting, we'll be live covering the cameras that we have available as this moves onshore in Florida. Well, that's it for now. I'm Jim Williams. Thank you for watching.